Today, we are diving into a Canadian Supreme Court case that feels more relevant now than ever. R.V. Hamilton. It's a story from the very early days of the internet, and it asks this fundamental, kind of paradoxical question about what a crime even is.
So let's just get right to the heart of it with this question. Can you be found guilty of a crime that nobody ever actually committed? I mean, it sounds like a riddle, right? But this is the exact question that makes the Hamilton case so fascinating and honestly so important. It makes you stop and think about where the line is between just an idea and an actual crime.
All right, let's set the scene. You have to picture the early days of the commercial internet. A 23-year-old named Renee Hamilton decides he's going to start a business. He buys this package of digital files from some website, rebrands them as his own top secret files, and then starts marketing them online.
And this is where things really start to get interesting. I mean, just look at the sales pitch from his teaser email. He wasn't exactly being subtle, was he? All caps, exclamation points. He's not just selling a piece of software. He is selling the idea of what you could do with it. And this email, which he sent to over 300 people, would end up being a crucial piece of evidence against him. So, what exactly were people getting for their $50? Well, a whole lot more than just that credit card generator he advertised. The files were this wild collection of how-to guides for illegal stuff. We're talking recipes for bombs, step-by-step instructions on breaking into a house, and a bunch of other illicit information. The sheer scope of this material is what caught the attention of the police and led to some very serious charges. So with all of this dangerous information flying around, you'd probably think Hamilton was charged with something obvious, like fraud or conspiracy to make a bomb. But he wasn't. The charges were way more abstract than that. He was charged with counselling an offence. Now, in Canadian law, that basically means encouraging or trying to get someone to commit a crime. And here's the kicker. It's illegal all on its own. You don't have to wait for the bomb to go off or for a credit card to actually be used. The simple act of inciting someone is the crime itself.
And this number right here, 0. This perfectly captures the core puzzle for the courts. Even though he made over 20 sales, the prosecution could not prove that a single person had used his information to commit a single crime. Not one. So, how could he possibly be guilty? Well, it all came down to what was going on in his head.
So in legal speak, the trial judge found he had the actus reus, which is Latin for the guilty act. Yeah, he sent the files, but she ruled that he lacked the mens rea, the guilty mind, or the criminal intent you need for the crime of counseling. Both of the lower courts agreed with this and acquitted him. But the Crown wasn't having it. They appealed, arguing the judge had made a huge legal mistake. And this brings us to the absolute heart of the entire legal fight. It's a distinction that might seem a little subtle, but in criminal law, it is everything. The difference between your intent and your motive. The trial judge's whole reason for acquitting him is captured perfectly in this quote. She basically thought Hamilton wasn't some evil mastermind trying to cause chaos. In her words, he was just unsophisticated and naive, trying to make a quick buck. His motive was money, not mayhem. But the Supreme Court was about to ask a very important question. Does that even matter? Okay. This is the key distinction the Supreme Court really zeroed in on. Think of it this way. Intent is the what. It's the decision to do the illegal thing. Motive is the why, the reason behind it. The law, for the most part, really only cares about the what, not the why. And the Supreme Court's majority basically said the trial judge got these two completely mixed up, and that was a major error in law. So the case lands at the Supreme Court of Canada, and this sets the stage for a massive showdown. This wasn't just about Renee Hamilton and his little internet business anymore. This was about drawing the line between speech and crime for the entire digital age. And, as it turns out, the top legal minds in the country were seriously divided on it. And I mean, they were really divided. The final vote was 6-3. That is a pretty significant split, and it just shows you that even at the highest court in the land, there was no easy answer here. A full third of the court disagreed with the final decision, which tells you just how much of a legal and philosophical puzzle this case really was. So let's break down their disagreement. The majority side argued that to be guilty of counseling, you either have to intend to encourage the crime or you have to be reckless, which means you know there's a real risk someone might commit the crime because of what you're saying, but you just go ahead and say it anyway. Their big concern was protecting society from harm. But the dissenting judges, they wanted a much, much higher standard. They said, no, you have to actually intend for the crime to be committed. They were really worried that the majority's view could end up chilling free speech. So after this whole intense legal battle, what was the final outcome for Renee Hamilton? And, more importantly, what does this case mean for all of us today? In the end, the Supreme Court sided with the majority. They allowed the Crown's appeal, but only partly. They ordered a new trial, but only on the charge of counseling fraud. Now, why just that one? Because the credit card fraud tools were the only things Hamilton actively hyped up in that teaser email. They upheld his acquittals on the bomb-making and burglary charges because, hey, he never actually mentioned those in his sales pitch.
But here is the fascinating twist. Even as the majority said Hamilton could be tried again, they issued a major warning. Justice Fish wrote this really powerful line, basically saying that old laws like counseling were never designed for the borderless mass communication world of the internet. They were basically telling Parliament, hey, it's your job, not ours, to create new laws for these new digital crimes.
And really, that's the legacy of the Hamilton case. I mean, it was decided back in 2005, which is like ancient history in internet time. But the challenge it represents is more urgent than ever. The big takeaway here is that in our digital world, an age of algorithms and influencers, where counseling can reach millions of people with a single post, figuring out criminal intent is a whole new ballgame. The Hamilton case is this legal puzzle from the dawn of the commercial web that, frankly, we are all still trying to solve today.